let's first start off. What is SUMIFS? So the SUMIFS function in Excel, what it really does, it sums cells that meet multiple conditions. So remember, sum will always mean addition. So you're adding things together. So if you're working for a company, you need to add sales together, whatever, where you have like different brands or you have different products. Imagine if you work for Take-A-Lot, and then they're like, all of these millions of products that they sell, you need to now somehow calculate. They'll say, calculate electronics. What's the total sale of electronics? And they give you a data set with like million rows, because Excel can go up to 1 million. You don't want to be sitting there touching your screen and like counting on your screen or having a calculator. No, you don't do that as an analyst. So today you'll be learning how to do this type of thing. So SUMIF was based on one condition. Sum this thing only if they are greater than 1,000 Rand. Remember that exercise where we had like different amounts and we said we only want to sum something if it's greater than a certain amount. You could also sum something based on the text. If it's apples, yeah, I think that exercise we did was, it was like apples and bananas and pears. And we said, sum this only if it's apples. So that was one condition. And then SUMIFS uses multiple conditions. So that's an addition of SUMIFS. So it will be multiple. It could be if it's a banana and it's yellow. Because sometimes you can have a banana that is green. And then it won't calculate the one that's green. It will only calculate the one that is yellow. So that's what the multiple conditions come in when you talk of SUMIFS. So it's quite important in business because especially when you have to, because not all businesses will have finances to have tools like Power BI and ClickSense, Tableau, Google's Looker Studio. Some you'll have to use Excel, especially if you work on like smaller agencies where everything is done on Excel and you don't want to be spending all the time. That's why you came to university. Yes, sir. Mm. SUMIFS, because there's multiple conditions. The first condition is if it's a banana. Remember, your data will have multiple fruits, grapes and whatever. So the first condition, it must be a banana. But if you don't put the second, it will sum all of bananas. But if your business, if it's a farm, you don't want to count the bananas that are not yet ready or whatever. Like, I'm just making an example. If you're selling green bananas, there's a market for people that want bananas to ripen at home. Like if you go to Woolworths, there's bananas that are green that you just buy and let them get ready at home. The others are already yellow. But you as a business, you need to distinguish between the two type of products. Are we making more sales? Are people liking to buy the bananas that are yellow, or do people want to buy them and go put them at home? See, that's already a marketing insight. Because now you're like, no, let's not stock up on the ones that are yellow, because people are like, no, they're gonna get rotten within a week. But it starts off from what you're gonna do. That's the analytics that you're gonna give back to the business and say, it doesn't seem like we're selling the yellow banana, so let's up on the green. Or if it's the other way around as well, like, okay, let's stop selling the green ones because the yellow ones are selling the most. So basically, that's the first step. You would need to calculate what's the value of that category. So yeah, basically SUMIFS is the multiple conditions. And then what is the purpose? I think from me just speaking, I've spoken about it, but it's to sum values based on multiple criteria, such as summing sales amounts greater than a certain value and within a specific date. So you can also put a date. So you can say, I only want sales, because if you get raw data, it won't be written in months for you. It will be written by day, like transaction by day. And if you work in retail, transaction go down to even by time. Like let's say every time the till goes beep, beep, that's data going to head office. Then if you are the analyst at head office, you have to calculate something. Your boss says, how many chickens have you sold? Or how many breads? when you go to the system and download that Excel file, you get a file that's not clean, the file that's not ready. That's why now you must clean the file, must now do your SUMIFS, because it's going to be a million rows at different times, but you're only interested in, I want for June, then you must be doing your SUMIFS and say, if it's greater than this date, I want these sales to come through. So I'm just giving you a scenario. Hopefully you guys are visualizing it with me. You must dare to dream. Okay. So obviously with SUMIFS or any function, there comes something called a syntax. So a syntax is also the code. So if people will say like coding, or there's like many words, but basically it's code, it's a code. But the Excel one is called an Excel syntax, which is the code that we do. So this is a syntax for SUMIFS. So you would say, you would obviously on Excel start with equals to activate any function. So when you say equals SUMIFS, you will see it as a function, and then you just need to click on it. Then once you click on it, it's going to give you the sum range. So the first thing you need to do is the sum range. So what is the sum range? So the sum range would be the actual cells to sum. So for example, if your data has like many rows, many columns, but you want to sum the sales, because sometimes you can sum the total number of products bought, you can sum the total number of orders, you can sum what? Yeah, basically, I think the profit, you can sum the cost. Let's say now we wanted to sum sales. So that will be your first range. So you'll say equals, what I'm trying to sum is the sales. Then you highlight the column that has the sales or revenue. That's what you first do. Then you get into the criteria range 1, which is your first criteria. So this is the range of cells to evaluate by the first criteria. So now your first criteria is bananas. You're going to go to the column that has fruits, different type of fruits, grapes, bananas, apples, pears. You highlight that column, which is your first criteria that you want to calculate. So if it was a SUMIF, you would stop there and get your, but now with SUMIFS, we want to bring in, oh, yeah, and then we want to bring in the second criteria. Sorry. So after the criteria range 1, you then state what criteria 1 is, which is comma. Your criteria 1 is the condition that defines which cells to add. For example, bananas is going to be your criteria 1. Because you said some sales, if this word banana is in this column, calculate banana. But obviously you state it at the end, like what the criteria is. So your second column you highlight is where there's a different types of fruits. Then your criteria, if it's text, you put it in double quotes and write bananas. Or sometimes you can highlight a cell that has the word. But then there, the tricky part, if you want to drag it down, you will like mess up your formula unless you lock it. So if you know how to lock with a $sign, you can lock. But I would say if it's a text, you put bananas in. Remember, it's case sensitive. So if it's a capital letter, it's correct spelling, then you put it in double quotes. So that's your first criteria, those 3 things. Then the second criteria will follow the same sequence, where now you do the same thing. You just go to the second sum range. You don't sum, you want to still sum the sales. Just go to the range 2. What is your range 2? Maybe it's color, where there's different colors, green, red, and yellow. Then your criteria 2 will be if it's yellow. Then you close your bracket. Yes, sir. It's optional because you could do a SUMIF. But yeah. So even, I mean, that's why you can't separate, you can't have SUMIFS without having a SUMIF, because the first part is a SUMIF. So it's just like showing you like it's not the same thing. But if you know how to do a SUMIFS, you will be able to do a SUMIF. But you must first know how to do a SUMIF to do the SUMIFS, if I'm making sense. But yeah, basically your multiple criteria, that's what you'll do. Okay, this is just an example. So here you're summing values greater than 1,000 Rand. So within your thing and less than 5,000 Rand, meaning we only want to sum values that are between 1,000 and 5,000. So there's two criteria. The first one, if it's greater than 1,000. The second one, less than 5,000. So we're not calculating anything that is 5,100 or anything that is 999 Rand. And then that will be your formula, SUMIFS. You select your sum range that you want to sum. And then you do your criteria range 1. Then here we said it's greater than 1,000, which is your criteria 1. And then we highlighted the criteria range 2. And then we said our criteria 2, if it's less than 5,000. So basically that's the syntax example of SUMIFS. So that's if we had to do it with numbers. As you can see, there's like different headings. Then with text, this is similar to what we said. So here, an example here is we want to sum it if it's fruits. And also, so we want to sum both fruits and vegetables. You can also use dates. So an example here, if you want to sum values with a date range for a specific month, so you could say between this date, the 1st of April 2021 and the 30th of April 2021. So you want to sum anything within that month. Because most of the time your data will have raw dates. It won't give you the month. You must do the work. Computer just capture things. So we must come in and do the work. So you can also combine SUMIFS with other functions. So this is similar to also what we did on SUMIF. So you can have your multiple criterias, add them together to get the final calculation. So there's also common errors and troubleshooting that we need to take note of when we're doing SUMIFS. So what are the common errors? So the first most common error is incorrect range or criteria, or if you have a mismatch, sum range. Then troubleshooting tips, troubleshooting meaning you're trying to find where the problem is. So you should ensure that your criteria are in double quotes if it's a text. So you need, if you put one quote, if you put the single thingy, you will get an error. And then you'll be like, why? Then you must go back to your code and check, oh, I didn't put a double quote. That's why I didn't calculate. Then also you can check for the correct range and sum range. So did you consider the correct one? Are you summing values? Because you can't sum text. You must always sum values. That's one thing that you need to take into account. And then there's advanced SUMIFS techniques out there. So for example, using a wildcard. So this was similar to also SUMIF. We did this using a wildcard. So this example is here you want to SUMIFS if you have that star thing in front of apples, it means anything that starts with an A. That's what we did on SUMIF. So it won't just calculate apples. If there's avocado and any other like thing that starts with an A, it will then sum it because you put that star. And then it will still be part of, if it's part of fruits as well as a classification. So yeah, and then the last one is just a comparison between SUMIF and SUMIFS. So when you're sitting at home or you're at work next year or later this year, you can take this out in your pocket, from your pocket. So yeah, that's just, so the key differences is the criteria. So SUMIFS uses a single criteria, while SUMIFS can handle multiple criterias. Flexibility. SUMIFS is more flexible for complex conditions. So you're starting to become a scientist. Usage. SUMIF is simpler for straightforward summing. And SUMIFS is better for detailed analysis. So with SUMIFS, you probably need to first write it down and like think about it like long. You can even like sit with your team and like, okay, guys, because even if you're there like as a team of analysts, you before you do like a big analytics project, you sit together, you present, you come up with ideas like, how do we tackle this thing? You can even develop your own code or whatever, but before you even calculate it, you need to know, okay, what are we wanting? Is it yellow bananas? Is it green bananas? You first write it down in English. Then when you go, you then gonna implement. Okay, let's jump on to our Excel file, which is the actual thing. So here we've got 3 exercises. We've got exercise 1, which is focusing on summing sales amounts using one condition. Then the second one is summing sales amounts using 2 criteria. And the third one is summing sales amounts using 3 criteria. So 1, 2, 3. So can you guys see that example that's already there? So you can look at that example and the code that has been used there, and then try and get all of these. So I'll be here. You can do it on your own computer. It's already done, the first one, and we've spoken about it. So just get all the values for all the other vehicle brands. I'll also do it so that you can double check if you're on the right path as well. So are you all there? Just check what I'm gonna do. So if you remember, this is the whole data set with all your columns. So the nice thing about this one, it's clean, whereby like there's nothing under your columns, like everything is, you can select the whole column, because sometimes if your data range might be like within another data, and then it's a lot of things going on, then you're gonna have to like select the actual data, like column ranges. But now because there's nothing, you can select the whole column, as we see. So here we selected like the whole column of brand, we selected the whole column, hence here it says II, meaning eye to eye, it's selecting the whole column of eye to eye. And then AA means the whole column of AA. So what that means, especially when you use these type of criteria, whatever you do to your data, if you drag it down or up, it will stay constant, because it's not like a range that is moving around. But the most thing that you need to be conscious on here is the criteria, which is the purple, the M10, which is opal. So that's the only thing variable that is going to move here, which is on this table on the right. So the way we did our thing, we are happy with this variable to move. So here, nothing is going to move. This is the whole column. But here, you see the way it is. There's Opel, there's Fiat, there's Volvo. So we are happy for that variable to be something that moves, because what we can do, once we've done it the first time, we can literally click this and drag it down. Then it's going to give us everything. We drag it, you can go to any one of them and highlight. The only thing that moved, you see, it's that BMW, it's there. So then even here, the one, it keeps moving because that's the only, but you see these columns will stay constant. So when it's done like that, you can do once and then you can drag it down. Unless it was in like a complex range where you have to maintain the range and then you're going to have to do each of them. But then it depends how you design your data. You see, if it's clean, you can automate, which is multiple criteria. So yeah. So it's, you start that, I mean, you're starting as the same, but now you're adding additional criteria, which is when I have 2 extra things. So first, to review the first, you can go and click on and review the formula that was used. I mean, you can drag it down, but you want to first do it and see if can you do it. The only time you drag down is like when you a master, you know, I can do this thing even if they wake me up at 2 a.m. Then you can be fancy and automate. So we can even do this one together, like started from kind of scratch. So here, what we're trying to do, we want to calculate the total amount of sales. So remember the table we're working on is this one. And our criteria is going to be brand and it's going to be the model. So it's vehicles, it's cars. This one. We want to sum, if it's the first one says, we want to sum only for brands that are BMW and the model is a 1ER because there could be multiple BMWs. There could be a 3 Series, there could be an X whatever, but you only want that specific model. So it's 2 criteria that you're using. So similar to what we did previously, we start off by selecting the sum range, which is the sales, comma or semicolon. Then your criteria range 1 is going to be, what's your criteria range 1? Huh? Brand, because the first thing is we want the brand, which is A, because the brand must first be BMW. You do the criteria and then you're done. And then next, it's the model. So you select criteria range 1, which is brand. Then your criteria 1 will be, you will then select the cell that has BMW. That's your first criteria. So if you didn't have 2 criteria, you would end there. But now we have another criteria. So you still move on, comma or semicolon. Excel says, let's do the criteria range 2, which is going to be model, which is column B. Now we select column B is our model. Comma or semicolon. Then the next thing is our criteria 2, which is going to be the cell that has 1ER. But if it wasn't done neatly like this, you would need to put it in double quotes, like if you were just doing it randomly. But now because you as an analyst, you've done your things smartly, you can literally just close your bracket and then you can drag it down. You won't always be able to drag down, by the way, as long as you do it the right way.